$795.84. That is what a 40% VA disability rating pays a veteran alone in 2026 tax-free every month. But 40% is famous for the rung sitting right above it, because 40 is the last stop before a cliff the VA never warns you about. One rung up, at 50%, something changes that has nothing to do with the size of your check, and for a lot of veterans it is worth more than the raise itself.
I'm Maya, and here is the part that gets me. At 40, you still pay copays at the VA, every prescription a cost. One rung up, at 50, your medications and your VA care go to zero. For a family filling 4 prescriptions a month, that is not a footnote. That is the grocery budget.
Hello, Lewis. We have run this experiment thousands of times and the pattern is always the same. Veterans fixate on the dollar jump from 40 to 50 and miss the bigger one. The cash raise is real, but the copay cliff is the part that quietly changes a household's whole budget.
I am Erica, and the cleanest way to see it is a single line on a map. 40 and 50 look like neighbors, but there is a border between them. On one side you pay for your care, and on the other side it is free. The rating number changes by 10, but the world on each side is completely different.
And let me name the honest tension up front, because this is the real question. 40% is a strong rating, it pays well, and dependents count. So is it actually worth chasing 50, or is a solid 40 the smarter place to plant your feet? We are going to fight that one out fairly.
And it is a genuine fork, not a foregone conclusion. For some veterans, pushing to 50 is the best move they will make this decade. For others, 40 is exactly where they should stop. The answer turns on numbers, and we will put those numbers on the table.
And there is a quiet detail most veterans miss in between. The cost-free care at 50 is not a small discount on top of a big raise. For a veteran who uses the VA heavily, the value of free medications alone can rival the raise itself. Hold that, because it reshapes the whole decision.
A viewer asked exactly this, and it frames the episode. Maya, read it out word for word.
Here it is, exactly as written. I'm at 40% and doing fine. Is it really worth all the hassle of pushing for 50, or am I chasing a tiny raise?
It is not just a tiny raise, and by the end you will know exactly when it is worth it. So let us start with what 40% actually pays.
Let me put the real figures down first, because the decision is meaningless without them. In 2026, 40% pay $795.84 a month for a veteran alone, completely tax-free. With a spouse, it is $882.84.
And that spouse number matters, because at 40 your family is already counted. Dependents start adding to the check at 30%, so by 40 a spouse and kids each put real money on top. A 40% veteran is not a single number, it is a household number.
Now set 50% right beside it, because that is the comparison the whole episode lives on. 50 pays $1,132.90 a month alone, and $1,241.90 with a spouse. So the cash jump from 40 to 50 is about $337 a month.
So let me put those two checks on the board side by side, because seeing the raise is the start of the decision. The 40% monthly against the 50% monthly for a veteran with a spouse in 2026 dollars.
And that raise is real, but here is what the bars do not show, and it is the part that fires me up. At 40, you are in Health Priority Group 2, and you still pay copays for your medications. The raise is on the board. The copays are invisible, and they are the bigger story.
Which is the reframe that matters. The $337 raise is the visible half of the move from 40 to 50. The cost-free care is the invisible half, and for a veteran who actually uses the VA, the invisible half is often the larger one. We have seen that order surprise people for years.
And that is why a simple bar chart undersells the jump. Picture 2 houses on the same street, one with a monthly bill for every doctor visit and every prescription, the other with none. The street looks identical, but the cost of living in each is not, and that gap is the part the raise alone hides.
So 40% is genuinely strong, a real check that already counts your family. But the prize everyone is circling is one rung up, and it is not mostly about the raise. Let us put real numbers on the copay cliff itself. One thing before the next part, and then we move right on. If any of this is clicking, tap that like, hit subscribe, and ring the bell for the next one. It takes a second, it costs nothing, and it helps more than you would think. Let us turn the copay cliff into one yearly number, because that is the only way to weigh it against the raise. Erica, frame the question we are actually answering.
Yes, and the real question is what the move from 40 to 50 puts in a household's pocket over a full year, counting both halves. The visible raise and the invisible cost-free care. Put them on one receipt and the decision stops being a guess.
Start with the part everyone sees, the raise. The cash difference from 40 to 50 is about $337 a month. Over a year, that is roughly $4,044 before we count a single prescription.
Now add the medications, because this is where the cliff bites. At 50, you are in priority group 1, and your prescription copays drop to 0. For a veteran on several monthly medications, that easily runs $600 a year or more, gone, straight back into the family budget.
Then add the rest of the cost-free care. Priority group 1 also means no copays on your VA visits and care, which for a regular user is easily several hundred more across a year. Call that $400 for an ordinary year of appointments.
So add the column, and the illustrative first-year value of that one rung lands near $5,000 for a veteran who actually uses the VA. The raise alone was $4,000. The cost-free care quietly added another $1,000, and for heavy users it adds far more.
And I want to be fair and hot at the same time, because the honesty cuts both ways. If you barely touch the VA, fill no prescriptions, and rarely visit, those copay lines shrink towards 0, and the raise really is most of the story. The cliff only pays the people standing on it.
Which is the historical lesson in one line. The value of 50% is not a fixed number, it scales with how much you use the system. A heavy user is leaving thousands on the table at 40. A light user is leaving a few hundred. Same rung, very different prize.
And that single insight is what turns this from a slogan into a decision. The question is never just is 50 worth it in the abstract. It is whether 50 is worth it for you, the specific veteran, with your prescriptions and your appointments. That is a personal calculation, not a universal one.
So the prize is real and it is personal, which raises the obvious next question. When, specifically, is the climb to 50 actually worth the effort? Let us make that concrete.
Here is when the climb to 50 is absolutely worth it, in plain terms. If you fill multiple prescriptions a month and you actually see VA doctors, the cliff pays you back fast. For that veteran, 50 is not a vanity number. It is real money landing in the household every month.
And there is a cleaner trigger than any budget math. If your service-connected condition has genuinely gotten worse, you should file for the increase regardless of the copay question. The rating is supposed to reflect the real severity, and a worse condition has earned a higher number. Erica, you have been waiting to make that real, so go ahead.
Yes, and the trigger is exactly where people freeze. Say a veteran's knee was rated at 43 years ago and now it gives out on stairs. Does that worsening on its own justify filing even before we talk copays at all?
It does, fully. The copay cliff is a reason to be glad you filed, but it is not the reason you file. You file because the condition is worse than the rating says, and the system is built to be updated when that happens. The free care at 50 is the bonus, not the justification.
And here is the line I will not cross, said hot and clear. You never inflate or perform a condition to chase 50. That is fraud, and it puts your whole rating at risk. The honest move is to document how bad it actually is accurately and let the evidence carry it.
Mechanically, the increase runs on the same application family as your original claim, VA Form 21526EZ. You file it, you attach current evidence that the condition is worse, and you ask the VA to reevaluate the severity. The condition is the same, the question is just how bad today.
And when you should stand on 40 is just as honest. If you barely use the VA, your condition is stable, and a re-exam could even risk your protected 40, then planting your feet is a perfectly rational choice. Not every rung is meant to be climbed.
And that is the part that respects the veteran instead of selling them. 40 is a strong place to stand. The climb to 50 is worth it for heavy users and for genuinely worsening conditions. It is not a universal command, it is a calculation you run for your own life.
So we have the when, and we have the honest both sides. Which means it is time to actually fight it out. Should a comfortable 40% veteran push for 50 or stand pat? Let us put that on the table head to head. Here is the fork that matters to the veteran watching, a comfortable 40% veteran, family counted, doing fine. Should they push for 50 or stand on 40? Maya, you take pushing for 50, and Lewis, you defend standing pat. I will weigh it and land a verdict.
I will go first, and I will go hot. If you use the VA at all, standing on 40 is leaving money on the table every single month. The copays you pay at 40 are dollars a 50% veteran simply does not spend. Over a decade of prescriptions, that is real wealth handed back to the government for nothing.
A fair opening, and here is the measured counter. You are assuming the climb is free, and it is not. Filing for an increase opens your file to a fresh examination, and that exam looks at everything, not just the condition you want raised. A veteran can walk in chasing 50 and walk out defending 40.
Hold there, Lewis. Maya, answer that directly, because the re-exam risk is the strongest argument against you.
It is, and I will not dodge it. The re-exam risk is real, but it is largest for ratings that are easy to revisit and weak on evidence. For a veteran with a well-documented, genuinely worse condition, the exam confirms the climb. It does not threaten it. The risk is a reason to file carefully, not a reason to never file.
Granted, and that narrows it well. But there is a second cost you are skipping. The climb takes time, effort, evidence, sometimes a year of waiting. For a veteran who barely uses the VA, the prize at the end is mostly just the raise, and a few $100s a year may not be worth a year of paperwork and exam room stress.
And there I actually agree with you, which is the honest part. If you do not use the system, the cliff does not pay you, and the climb may not be worth it. My case was never everyone should chase 50. It is that the heavy VA user who stands on 40 is the one truly losing money.
So here is the verdict, and it splits exactly along use. If you use the VA regularly, fill prescriptions, see doctors, then pushing from 40 to 50 is worth it because the cost-free care at Priority Group 1 routinely outvalues the hassle on top of the raise. That is the sourced answer.
And the other half of that verdict, which I will gladly sign. If you rarely use the VA and your condition is stable, standing on a solid, protected 40 is a rational, defensible choice. The right move is not the same for both veterans, and pretending it is would be the real disservice.
So here is the reframe, said plainly. 40% is strong, and 50% is free. The number on your letter changes by 10, but the line you cross is the copay cliff, and that line reshapes a household budget more than the raise alone ever could.
And the dollars are not small in either direction. 40 pays $795.84 alone, $882 with a spouse. 50 adds about $337 a month and then zeroes out your medications and your care on top. For a real VA user, that stack is thousands a year.
And the deciding insight is the one we keep returning to. The prize at 50 scales with how much you use the system. 2 houses on one street, identical from the curb, but one pays for every visit and the other pays nothing. Which house you live in is the whole decision.
So the verdict, in one measured line. If you use the VA regularly, push to 50, the cliff pays you back many times over. If you rarely use it and your condition is stable, a solid, protected 40 is a perfectly good place to stand. The right answer is yours, not a slogan.
And the one rule that holds for everyone. If your condition is genuinely worse than 40 says, file the increase, honestly, on VA Form 21526EZ. Never inflate it, never perform it. Just document the truth and let the evidence carry the number.
And that is the thread under all of it. The rating is meant to match reality, and the benefits stack on top of an honest number. 40 earned honestly is strong, and 50 earned honestly is free care. Neither is a trick, both are just the truth, accurately filed.
If you forget every figure today, keep this one. 40 is the last rung before your VA care goes free, and whether you climb it depends on one thing: how much you actually use the VA. Emma, take us out and put the question to them.
Here is what I want you sitting with, and drop it in the comments. If you are at 40% right now, are you a heavy VA user who should be climbing to 50 for the free care, or a light user who is right to stand pat? Here is the one thing to carry out of today. 40% is the last rung before the copay cliff, and crossing it at 50 turns your VA care and medications cost-free. The raise from 40 to 50 is real, but the free care is the part that quietly reshapes a household budget.
My favorite number is the stack. About $337 a month in raise, plus medications to zero, plus visits to zero. For a real VA user, 50% is thousands of dollars a year more than 40, not a tiny bump.
And the lesson I will leave you with is restraint. The climb is not for everyone. A light user with a stable, protected 40 is right to stand pat. The prize at 50 scales with how much you actually use the system.
My move for you this week. Add up your real VA use, your monthly prescriptions, and your visits, and ask honestly which house you live in. If you are the heavy use house, the climb to 50 is calling. And if today helped, like the video and subscribe so we can keep building this VA series out for you.
One last thing before we sign off. If you are getting real value from these, a like and a subscribe is the best way to support the work. That is exactly what grows the series and keeps these episodes coming. Small definitions, well placed, save large explanations later.
8.7. Emma. The room was with you the entire time. This is Professor Erica. Thanks for watching and signing off.